Like you, a lot of us, when we did hear about the news, some of us were in it as well. We were posted in the northern areas, but none of us were expecting the magnitude of the disaster. I mean, we just think, yes, it's an earthquake, maybe some buildings fell, but no one thinks the individual stories that might have been happening to people. But now moving on to Miss Sobia over here, who happens to be a clinical psychologist. Sobia, you know, when we talk about PTSD, especially in such cases, especially in such an impressionable age, this is pathological anxiety, right? And it grows on to be a part of your character when you're, what, 3 years old or 5 years old. How, I know this is sort of a weird question, but how badly do you think the PTSD might have stuck with these children?
Thank you so much. Firstly, I want to start it with the appreciation she's doing. Actually, she is, practicing a psychotherapy there.
Absolutely. Without being one.
Exactly, exactly. She have expertise to, convert that thing. Appreciable. Actually, when we see any disaster, WHO says that 3 to 4% of people actually affected by the severe disorders like anxiety, as you are asking about the traumatic stress disorder, psychosis and depression, and 15% of the total population affected by mild to moderate. And when we see the stat of earthquake of 2005, the 80 million exactly 4 million people are affected by the this earthquake. Means 6 lakh people are affected by the psychological disorder on and off.
And those were the ones who were hurt by it.
Exactly.
But there was also sort of a second-hand damage, if we can say.
Exactly. And it's a long term.
Of course.
We can't say that it's just happen and just go away. No. The psychological impression is a long term, and it converted into different disorders, and especially in the children, old ages, women and children.
Right,
These
that's
are
what I was going to ask.
morely affected by this, psychological impact by any disaster. In our region, there are a number of things that are happening, and children don't know. Even 17,000 children died only on that time. The parents. And these stats, when you look to the history and see the stats, how going on and what kind of misery that time happened, and how people even now, as Shahzad said, that people are now recalling, and they are still there.
Exactly.
When they remember that scenario, that time period, and they are still there and flashback in their mind, and they get depressed.
How can you get over such a thing?
Things that happen, actually it depends on the 3 categories. I just distributed in the 3 category: international, national and a local context.
All right.
When we'll see the earthquake situation, local contexts are really involved in that thing. We as a country, we are very soothing people. We support in such scenario, and we help each other, although we don't know the psychological systematic way how to deal, and the psychotherapy is saying this happened, but the people behave that time very accurately and support each other. Families go toward them and they show up.
And counsel them as well.
We are here. Different experts jump into the field, and they show up their help and support. And this support system helped them to recover. It's a recovery phase, and still many of people in a recovery phase.
Exactly, that's very true as well. But I'll move on to Dr. Khadija over here. Now, ma'am, Ms. Nigar, first of all, we never knew that you actually took such great initiative. So I would have to pay rich tribute to your services, or the kind of support system you've provided for all of those kids who actually lost their parents as well. But what I wanted to ask you, Dr. Khadija, was that, okay, puppet show, fine, it's going to last an hour. Probably reading a book, any of the book, I think will last you 30 minutes, or probably it will take you away from the reality for a little bit of time. But eventually you're going to come back to that. Imagine that if there are more than 80,000 people who are actually dead after a natural calamity, there must be brothers, sisters, parents, khala, papa, you name a relationship, they've lost them, and they've lost them for life. Just very recently, we actually had somebody over from an orphanage from Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and he had kids with him, and he told us that, that while he was just driving down the road, he could see children who's actually lost their parents, and the kids, they are now in first year or second year, or they're all grown up, and they still remember all of that. That's not going to go away, or can it go away?
Yes, That's first I want to add that I was also, you could say, a victim in the earthquake
And a survivor.
because I was in Ravlakot. I was a
Oh,
medical
God.
doctor. I was working in a hospital over there. Fortunately, I was not in the hospital because Saturday was a holiday. So my own workplace, it crashed down. So
Oh,
just looking at that thing was so traumatic. As for trauma, I am a trauma therapist. In that time, there were people who came from England who started a trauma therapy called EMDR. It's a fantastic, fantastic therapy. It focuses on your trauma. And trauma is like something that your body cannot bear, your mind cannot bear. It's like you have a wound on your hand and it heals. But sometimes it becomes infected and the healing stops. Similarly, trauma is something that your mind cannot bear. So we have this therapy which takes off the block of the healing and the normal healing of the brain starts. So EMDR is a beautiful, beautiful therapy. It works with your trauma, specifically with your trauma. And this trauma is earthquake, right?
Yep.
A loss of a loved one or going through a traumatic you could, yeah, but sometimes the trauma can be very small, constant traumas, living in domestic abuse, living in an abusive environment. These are small traumas which add up to be a big trauma.
Okay.
So EMDR will focus on that trauma. It will remove the block of the healing. So the normal healing of the brain will take over.
Oh, all right. That makes
So
sense.
you will come up with an adaptive information that will take you further. So you say that the earthquake happened, things happened, but let's go further. Let's move on. So from a victim to a survivor to a thriver. So
I
we
like
have
that.
a line we say post-traumatic growth.
Okay.
And that's our favorite line because that's what EMDR does. Post-traumatic growth.
Right, so there are hopes, of course, for the people who are going through any such thing. But one thing, though, again, like I said last time as well, this is sort of a weird question, but I always want an answer to this. For someone who just lost someone so close to them, or going through any sad thing, or, like we're talking about this calamity, do they really want to hear some stranger come to them and be like, oh, it's okay, life's going to be better, it's okay, they're in such a better place? I understand that we would do it out of courtesy and love and probably empathy, but the next person doesn't want to hear it, right? So what are the right things to say? What is the right approach? And let's start with you, Ma'am Nigar, because you were doing that without being a psychologist, right? How did you go about it?
Well, we made it up through the puppets.
Oh.
So we had two funny characters of chickens,
Okay.
because that's a very common pet in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Sajji Bee and Tikka Ji. So Sajji Bee just doesn't get over it.
Okay.
And Tikka Ji says, look, you have to think of other things. You have to engage yourself in other things. And then they go to the gorilla character,
Okay.
who is Bagga. And Bagga said, oh, I went through it all and it's so terrible. So you see, then the kids identify with that person who is not getting over it.
Got it.
And the other person who is saying, look, this is what I was told to do and this is what I did. And it's working. So you're not directly lecturing that
Yes.
child or person, individual, but you are getting the characters to say it so that the
Indirect
kids
approach.
can relate to
manage
it.
it.
And say, this is the wrong thing to do and this is the right thing to do. So why don't I do the right thing? It's going to benefit me.
That's brilliant.
But all through song and dance and Gogi coming along and explaining the science of how the earthquake happened, explaining the science of the, the aftershocks and all these things, because there are other characters. There's a little Chuya Bee, and Chuya Bee says, why did it happen? How did it happen? Why did it happen to me?
Yeah.
And so Gogi explains, well, this is how it happened and this is why it
Plus,
happened.
just one thing to add to what you're already talking about. I know, so this is sort of further away from our topic. But ma'am, of course, this might have stuck your heart or your brain as well, like what was going on to such innocent souls and lives. So how did you manage to actually yourself, first of all, get over it and then entertain people? It's such a hard task, because if I'm thinking about it right now, if you give me a puppet to, entertain children who are going through something bad, I might cry doing the puppet show. How did you hold it together?
Well, I was crying when the kids were laughing, because after that they were just wanting to come back to us, and so I told all my puppeteers to come out of the back scene from behind the
Right,
theatre.
right.
I said, come out, so that I could control myself. And so they came out with their puppets, and they were entertaining the kids. And then we gave them out my books, my comic books,
Yes.
Kude Ka
And they're
Jinn.
over here as well, and
A
I
lot
think,
of
ladies
them.
and gentlemen, that it's a wonderful job done as well. I mean, imagine this book which I have in my hand right now is Mere Shajar Ki Kitab. It's my tree book, and if that's how the books are going to look, I think I would
So
have,
interesting.
you know, I would have been a good student. I mean, if back in the day I had these books as well. I mean, they're colorful and they kind of
Attractive.
illustrate. Yeah, they
So
illustrate the, you know, whatever is written in it as well. And not just this, I think, I mean, imagine.
And cultural.
Just look at the titles as well. Different Faiths, One Nation. I think that these are the kind of books everybody needs to read as well. And not just that. Okay, so we are catering to every category.
Yeah.
So we have Gogi's baby book as well.
We're in love with this one.
Which I will try that. I'll take off Ms. Nigar Nazar as well. but yeah, but ladies and gentlemen, I think that these books would have helped those children anyways, because of the fact that they're so interesting to read, and then there are those moral messages embedded within these books as well. So obviously they are going to have an impact on your brain.
So can I just add
Sure.
another book to this?
Yeah.
After the puppet show was over, and of course we were asked again and again by the administrator at PIMS to repeat the puppet show, and we did. We never refused. I would take my whole team there, and we'd just put up our deck and run the audio track and start the puppet theater. And we
Were you
would
going
get
different places?
hospital.
Okay.
Because that's where the wards were. That's
Okay.
where there was a psychiatric ward. We'd get the children from there. There was the burnt kids ward. We'd get the children. We would just get kids from all over. And the moment they would hear that Gogi's here with, Gogi's going to be entertaining us with a puppet show, young, old, everybody would come. And that was great.
Exactly.
And of course, this resounding music and the, song and the dancing. But to follow up with that, I did 2 books, comic books on earthquake. क्या था? कुदरती आफात से बचाव के तरीके. So this was done with collaboration of JICA, the Japanese organization. They wanted me to produce a comic book that could tell children in a delightful way the do's and don'ts of a disaster. What do you do?
Right,
How do you react? How do you combat the situation? You're lost. You're separated from your home and your
Where
family.
to hide, how to hide, under the table.
I think
It's
this is a
great.
good moment to actually talk about the do's and don'ts.
Yeah, and
so
very
why
quickly
don't you?
before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to order these books, there's this email address, work.gogistudios@gmail.com. All you need to do is that you just need to send them an email, and they will deliver it to your doorstep. So, ladies and gentlemen, these books we're recommending, and I'm going to recommend every single day as well, that if you want your kids to learn, and if you want your kids to probably have something very fruitful in their hands, I think these are the books they need to read.
Yes,
Work.gogistudios@gmail.com. It's on the screen as well.
All right, so here's the thing. Why don't you, Ms. Nigar, begin with the do's and don'ts, physically what we need to do, and then we'll move on to both of you on how, the do's and don'ts of the mind. I hope this makes sense.
Yes,
All
it
right.
makes sense.
So the first thing that the kids were asked to do was keep in their school bags a complete page of their home, their parents, the number to
right.
contact,
Address.
and the address.
Okay.
And I remember one picture in which the kids are running, darting outside when the earthquake happens, and one kid is running back to get his bag.
Okay.
Big no. Do not go back. Just run away.
We have
Just
these
run
other
out.
pictures as well, which we've
These
played.
are fun. These are fun cartoons. So yeah, I started with Gogi Comics, as you know.
Right.
And this one is funny because I'm sorry, I'm diverting. But here Gogi is picturizing and taking a video of the Rukhsati of the Dulhan. And by the time they're all cried and sobbed and reached the car to be, Rukhsat, she's saying, oh, I forgot to take the lens cap off.
Oh,
So you
no
have to go back and
pictures.
start
And do
crying
it again.
again.
All right, all right. So maybe if we can remove the pictures for just right now, because sort of we were on a topic of do's and don'ts, which is so important, because a lot of people need to learn that.
एग्जैक्टली हम अभी असल में बात कर रहे हैं कि जल्जले के अंदर जो है क्या करना चाहिए और क्या नहीं करना चाहिए, तो ये पिक्चर्स हम बाद में इस्तेमाल भी कर सकते हैं, लेकिन अब तो चले हम दिखाई दी, बताइए please.
Right. So what happens is that that's one thing that was written in the book with pictures. Of course, everything is all illustrations
Illustrated,
and
yeah.
comics. So even those who do not or cannot read can understand what has to be done.
Brilliant.
Then a little kit has to be prepared with a rope, a lighter, a matchbox, and whatever the essentials of a bandage, a scissor, all these things.
First aid kit type of
First aid
thing,
kit at home as well as in school.
Yeah.
Then the other don't was actually, do not run like in a
Herd.
cluster.
Yeah.
Queue up and walk fast, move out, but don't crowd
Create a
each other.
stampede,
Don't be,
got it.
stamping. What else was there?
Get under the table.
Under the table, so that if something falls from
Yeah.
the top, it hits the table and not your
Yeah,
head.
exactly.
And even the window panes. So get away from window panes, go under the table, and also when you're outside, stay away from the poles, the electric poles.
Yes.
Exactly.
Main things, or you are.
Yeah, Ms. Sophia, you wanna
she's-
add? Please go
actually
on.
What she's telling, preparedness plan is
Yeah.
generated by the schools or by her in a entertaining way.
Exactly.
That children easily learn and ready for the next things. Actually, disaster don't want, especially country don't want a disaster because we are being.
No, but no
country.
disaster,
Exactly.
no disaster.
It doesn't knock on the
actually-
door.
Takes
No,
permission.
Any disaster does not know any gender, any age, so it's going, if it's coming, it's coming.
It happens and it
Exactly.
happens in.
Which is why I'm going to ask you now. A lot of times, this is something which people talk about quite a lot. That why did this happen to us only?
Exactly.
So the
Misery.
entire region, all of those people, they were like, why did this happen to me? It was a misery. It was catastrophic. It was devastating, and everything was demolished over there as well. So for people to recover from it mentally is something which is very important, even for their continuous growth.
Exactly.
How do you think that they can come down to a point? Obviously, they've done a wonderful job, but God forbid, if something like this happens in any other part of the world, we need to talk about it. So how do you think that mental preparedness, how do you think that it's going to come along the way?
First thing, the acceptance rate. Because when anything happened, we don't accept. We are in a denial phase. We said, no, it's not happened to me. We always complaining. It should not happen to me. Why Allah has given me due to the sin or anything. We just connect with the
Start
different
blaming
phases,
ourselves.
religious or blaming ourselves. First thing, the acceptance. If any disaster, if any unpredictability happen in your life, you need to accept the phase. Then that next plane, what I have right now, because usually we always crying for the things we don't have.
Yeah.
This
it's only
thing
natural.
exactly, these things things weaken your immunity system, especially the psychological system. A guard system is also installed in yourself and you don't know how to activate it.
Okay.
Exactly.
86 million especially neurotransmitters are working at a time in your mind, and they are fighting against the things you don't have.
Yeah.
So important things, the acceptance. Second thing is what you have right now. It means the tools what you have. You have shelter. If you don't have shelter, what you can do? You can approach the community worker or any other, national level and international level. The second thing you need to, if you are, the elder one in your family, and you need to take care of the family, and you need to tell them this is the stage, the good times will come, because the words, the positive words come up, heal your mind.
Of course.
In a good direction, actually.
Exactly.
Right.
That's wonderful. Very quickly, just in connection to what you were actually saying and what I was asking was mental preparedness. And, Ms. Sophia over here has actually raised a very, I think, pertinent point where, when you were the elder one and God forbid you've lost your parents, and then, you have the responsibility of the younger ones as well, and, there's no finances at your disposal, then there's nothing in your hand, and you have this immense pressure every single day. The way, the very moment you're going to wake up till the time you sleep, this is all you're thinking about. And, your younger ones, you see them and you see that, you do not have a support system because you are the eldest one anyways. And then, these thoughts, they just do not stop. They just keep on coming. Do you think that there's any exercise, breathing exercise, something to get rid of such a thought process?
Yeah, and we're asking you, especially Ms. Khadija, because you're the right person here. I'll tell you why. for someone, like you mentioned, your workplace just crashed completely, right? And then you're going back to treat people who have gone through the same thing that you have. So first of all, you have to yourself come out of it. So while you answer his question, also sort of incorporate how to effectively manage conflicts in such a situation.
Yeah. What you have said, actually, I'll start from there. First thing that we do in any sort of therapy is stabilization exercises.
Okay.
Like you develop resources to deal with the situation right at that time. And then there are therapies to develop you,
Right.
to make you grow out of that trauma. You know, one has to have the belief that what has been thrown on your shoulders, because it's in Quran, that what has been thrown on your shoulders is, your shoulders are broad enough to take it.
Yes, it's
Exactly.
not beyond your capacity.
So that is one belief that the therapist or the counselor should have also.
Okay.
So you have to start with the stabilization techniques, and the best stabilization techniques are those which you have been practicing since your own childhood. You know, maybe talking to friends, maybe exercising, maybe going for a walk, and then we also teach you breathing exercises and something. That is something which we teach, but we also try to bring out what has been working for you.
Right.
And then we go to the next stage, which is the treatment. The treatment, in the treatment phase, we do not say, you know, Allah better karega, things will be fine with you,
namaz
because
padho,
these
sab
things
theek ho
don't ring
jayega.
true. You cannot tell a person who's lost everything, lost a house, lost a mother, lost a father, lost children, that things will be okay for you. This thing is going to come from within you.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
therapies are made in such a way that they bring out the strengths from you. You don't instill words in the client. You build up the client in such a way that the person is empowered to deal with the trauma.
Exactly.
And we have such good therapies, EMDR, CBT. They are the ones which really bring out the best in you. They empower you. They make you grow. They make you grow out of the trauma. So the memory will remain.
Yeah.
The memory is always going to be there, but you're not going to relive it.
Yeah, you're going to
Okay.
look at it in a very different way.
Yeah, well, like we see that you have a movie on and you can switch it off anytime. But a traumatic memory which has not been processed is going to take over you. You're going to spend the entire day just thinking of the earthquake. So the treatment is done in such a way that you can switch it off anytime you like.
Or you disassociate the negativity in such a way that, of course, it doesn't.
Yeah. So
it doesn't harden you.
the negativity, actually you take out the best from that negativity. You have built, it's inherently
And
built
what do we
in
call
you.
that therapy?
EMDR.
EMDR, the same one.
And you know, it's
CBT is also trauma focused. CBT is also very good.
Okay.
It's the fact that you have to take out the positive from the negativity.
And this is why, you know, what I'm going to ask right now is that, you know, since you were there and you've been a victim and you've been a survivor yourself, so you might have experienced how many people did even get therapies. Number one, this is something which I want to ask, because when we're talking about more than 2.5 or 2.8 people, 2.8 million people displaced, obviously everybody needs to go through this therapy, which I don't think they might have in the first place. Then there were these displaced camps as well, where people were coming in and living over there. Even, you know, daughters were getting married within those camps as well, and those were relief camps. Not just that. Number two, what I want to ask is that every human has their own cheat codes, you know. For example, I'm going to give you a very amazing example which works for me, that if I have to go to the gym, you know, I have to sleep even if it is for 5 minutes. Only then I can go and do well in my gym. You know, this is a cheat code which I've applied. And whenever, God forbid, you know, your routine is disturbed, you know, all of those cheat codes start to kind of have an impact on you and you want to get back to your routine. How do we get rid of these cheat codes as well? Because, you know, God forbid if such a thing is going to happen, you know, you're not going to be in your routine and all of the things are going to change suddenly. So you really need to get rid of all of these cheat codes in the first place.
Okay, so first thing is, I told you about stabilization. Next, in every therapy, you start with the routine. You always tell the person, go back to your routine, and the client looks at you, we have lost our house, everything is gone, which routine are we talking about?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth, changing your clothes, doing something productive, going back to office or whatever remains of the office.
Yeah.
You have to go back to your routine. You have to do things all all those things which make you feel normal.
So you have to follow that routine.
You have to
Okay.
follow that regimentation of the routine.
Okay.
Is the best thing that you can do to yourself.
Which is why people feel disturbed when they're out of their routine as well.
Yes,
Oh, I
that
get it
gives
now.
you
That's why-
that
Yes.
gives you the control over yourself.
Yeah.
Because everything around you is breaking down. So that routine will give you the control which you have lost.
And then you will look forward to it as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. But now, since we're really short on time, now it's not a question, it's sort of a comment or statement coming from all of you brilliant ladies over here. Let's start with you, Ms. Nagar, not as a cartoonist, not as an author, but as a person who saw it all. This is the first-hand story, trigger warning. It's going to be disturbing for anyone who is a little more sensitive. Since I mentioned, right, I was living in Murray during this period, and every other day we would come across stories of parents who were, giving up their life because they had nothing left. No house, no income. Some of the very close family members had passed away, so they wanted to end their life, and they did. And it happened in a lot of parts of Pakistan. Some people don't have the mechanism to cope with such a disaster. So, Ms. Nagar, for anyone going through any hard time, and for all the people especially who did go through the 2005 earthquake, speak to them, let them know, or sort of help them with your words, how to be strong in that situation. This is your camera, please go ahead.
Okay, I would say meditation, reflection, and doing something for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you touch someone's life and make a difference, it gives you that inner energy and strength, motivation. So after that puppet show, every time we would come back from that puppet show, my team members were like, you look at those kids laughing and smiling and grabbing the Kude Ka Jinn and reading it and dancing with the puppets. You can see this video on my Facebook. It's there. Everybody can see it. And also the inside story, which I recorded separately. And the Facebook is, of course, Gogi Studios official. So have a look at that video. When you see it, you do feel, yes, I'm feeling much better. So the idea is actually, when we are helping someone else or touching their lives, we are actually giving a benefit to ourselves.
Right,
I
that's
believe in that, and I do it all the time.
Wonderful.
And
That
that's your
gives me
key.
strength.
And I
Okay,
think it's a
brilliant.
wonderful message as well. But very quickly, we're not going to ask you for a message, because I think we want you to answer this amazing question. It's not really amazing, but it's something which I've come across myself as well. Just very recently, for the very first time in life, I had a panic attack, where my heartbeat was just up all the way, and my hands were numb, and I thought that I'm experiencing a heart attack. Why is something which I might tell you after the show, but a similar thing might have happened to all of these people as well. They might think every night before sleeping that, okay, the earthquake might come. How to get rid of such a feeling that, this phobia of going back into a situation or a condition where you were earlier, God forbid, back in 2005.
Actually, should I start?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Not all wounds are visible, as you said.
Yeah.
Psychological health is really important. We need to understand after earthquake. In the context of Pakistan, there are very wonderful achievements started in the respect of mental health.
Yep.
Yes.
And we really understand what is actually happening and how we use to control it. So important thing, we need to see the sign. A very famous line, treat signs. It's a mental health approach is really nowadays trending to offer help.
All right.
So important point is to offer help. It is the section of very important in health.
Okay.
Okay, we need to offer help and manage mental health.
Wonderful.
That's-
What would you say about a phobia?
So we have a line in therapy which is called "body keeps the score." So you have to be aware of the signs of your body. We are, as a nation, we are not very aware of psychological signs, but we are very aware of what our body is doing. So when the score of the body on a scale of 0 to 10 is 1 or 2, there's some disturbing signs. When you think of the panic attack, you must be having something over here. I usually have a headache
Dobara na
over
ho jaye
here.
yaar,
Phobia.
Sometimes you have a tightness of hair. Be very aware of your body.
Yeah.
When the score of your body is on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is minimum, 10 is maximum, when it is 1 or 2, when you have slight change, negative change in your body, do your stabilization exercises.
Okay.
Do whatever makes you feel better, makes you feel good.
Wearing tight clothes make me feel good. I want to feel my muscles.
Yeah. So whatever makes
Yeah.
you feel good, whatever makes you feel better, you have to
Happy
do
neurons
that.
actually.
Yeah.
And be very aware of your body. That's the first thing.